If you are on the go and you must stop at a Cava, here are your top 3 options and your worst 3 options for your health and fitness goals. Yo guys, it's Mackenzie from SciFit, and today we're talking about eating fit on the fly. If you are on the go and you must stop at a Cava, here are your top 3 options and your worst 3 options for your health and fitness goals. As always, we will start with rock bottom and work our way up from there. Rock bottom option number 1 is the braised lamb with the pita bread, tzatziki, avocado, crumbled feta, and Kalamata olives. This meal option has 790 calories with 52 grams of fat, 17 grams being saturated fat, about 1.5 grams of salt, 54 grams of carbs with 5 grams of sugars, and 8 grams of fiber with 34 grams of protein. This meal, while seemingly healthy on the surface, has an exorbitant amount of fat with about 1/3 of its total fat calories coming from saturated fat. In fact, nearly 60% of this whole meal is fat.
Because Santa is watching his saturated fats.
Man, they do have a lot of saturated fat.
You would be really hard pressed to offset that amount of fat later. This option also has a negative protein to carb ratio of around 1 to 1.5 grams respectively. If you are at Cava and you're in a pinch, avoid this combo of toppings, sauces, and proteins to stay balanced. Rock bottom option number 2 is the falafel on the grain bowl base with haras, avocado, crumbled feta, fire roasted corn salsa, and Kalamata olives. This meal has 872 calories with 49 grams of fat, with 8 grams being saturated fat, almost 2 grams of salt with 90 grams of carbs with 9 grams of sugars and 17 grams of fiber with literally only 25 grams of protein. This option, although slightly better than option number 1, is still a fat and carb bomb. It does have about half the amount of saturated fat as option number 1, but about double the amount of carbs.
That's a lot of carbs.
The ratio of protein to fat is just under 1 to 2 grams respectively. This option also has the least amount of protein of all 6 of the options that we will discuss today. This option also has a negative protein to carb ratio that actually exceeds 1 to 3 grams respectively.
Could be worse.
How? How could it be worse?
If you are at Cava, avoid this combo of toppings, sauces, and proteins to stay balanced. It's hardly a step in the right direction. Rock bottom option number 3 is the spicy lamb meatballs with pita bread, lemon herb tahini, tomato cucumber salad, shredded romaine lettuce, crumbled feta, and again, Kalamata olives. This meal is 625 calories with just 32 grams of fat, 9 grams being saturated fat, about 1.5 grams of sodium, 51 grams of carbs with just 5 grams of sugar and only 3 grams of fiber, and really only about 35 grams of protein. There is almost a 1 to 1.5 gram ratio of protein to carbs and almost a 1 to 1 gram ratio of protein to fat. That's hardly what I would call lean and fit. It does, however, have a reasonable amount of sugar and a lower saturated fat content. Although half of the calories in this option do come from fat, this option isn't truly that awful due to its lower calorie nature and the ease of which you could offset with a reciprocally balanced meal later. This is by far and away the best option of the rock bottom options. These combinations all have massively inverse protein to fat and protein to carb ratios that we are looking for if we are looking to remain as close as possible to our fit eating routine. With these kinds of choices, you are actively making it harder on yourself to offset in accordance with your goals later. You could do that at Cava, but it would be really hard. Wouldn't it be much easier to just choose things that helped you towards your goals or at least made your life easier? What a novel concept. Let's talk about the best 3 item combinations you can have to achieve this. Fast and fit option number 1 is the double grilled chicken on a green and grains base with Fresno peppers, pickled onions, tomato cucumber salad with the yogurt dill sauce. This meal option has 682 calories with just 30 grams of fat and 9 grams being saturated fat, about 1.5 grams of salt with 32 grams of carbs, 5 grams being sugars, and 2 grams being fiber with 68 grams of protein. This meal option is by far the best at Cava.
Congratulations.
It has an over 2 to 1 gram ratio of protein to fat, and it boasts the same ratio for protein to carbs. Although 40% of the calories in this option are from fat, it has the least amount of fat of any of the options we have discussed so far. Also, the actual amount of fat in this option is more easily offset with a leaner meal later. This option also has by far and away the most amount of protein of any of the options we will discuss today.
Okay. Got protein, we need protein.
This is your best bet for making your life easier to hit your fitness goals the rest of the day at Cava. Fast and fit option number 2 is the double Haras honey chicken salad on a greens base with Fresno peppers, pickled onions, tomato cucumber salad, and the yogurt dill sauce. This meal option has just 588 calories with just 28 grams of fat, 8 grams being saturated fat, about 1.5 grams of salt with 22 grams of carbs, and 10 grams of sugar with 4 grams of fiber and 59 grams of protein. This option is very similar to Fast and Fit option number 1. The protein to carb ratio exceeds 2 to 1 grams and the protein to fat ratio also exceeds 2 to 1 grams. However, this option does have less actual protein than Fast and Fit option number 1, even though it does have the same percentage. The difference between this option and the first is the slightly higher fat percentage, making it minutely harder to offset later in the day. In all honesty, options 1 and 2 are completely interchangeable without there having to be a significant difference in your habits for the rest of the day. Fast and fit option number 3 is the double grilled meatballs on a greens base with Fresno peppers, pickled onions, tomato cucumber salad with a yogurt dill sauce. This meal has 448 calories with 28 grams of fat, 14 grams being saturated fat, a little over a gram of salt, only 9 grams of carbs with 4 grams of sugar and 1 gram of fiber, and 43 grams of protein. Although this option has nearly the same percentage of fat as rock bottom option number 1, it has almost half the actual fat content. However, half of the fat calories in this option are coming from saturated fat. That's a step in the wrong direction.
Jaywalking.
This meal is a very low calorie option that could be easily offset with a reciprocally balanced meal later in the day. This meal option also boasts an almost 5 to 1 gram ratio of protein to fat. This meal is right up the keto alley if that is a diet that you are subscribed to.
You keto, by the way? You look like a keto.
Also, this is a great option for those of you not on keto, for the record. These options are the best because they are all more easily offset with a reciprocally balanced meal, or they have a positive protein to fat or positive protein to carb ratio. Choosing options like this will have you more balanced and aligned with your fitness goals, even in a pinch. It is actually fairly easy to eat fit at Cava. However, you have to make the right choices for you and your goals. So make sure you take your self-accountability cap out of your pocket before you get to the counter. Remember, when we are eating on the go, it's about 2 things: prioritizing protein and avoiding the big 3: sugar, saturated fat, and anything fried. Now you know how to eat fit on the fly.